Welcome to The Craft. I'm your host, May Globus. This podcast is a collection of intimate conversations on artistry, mastery, and life with talented, passionately curious creatives and entrepreneurs. Most are dear friends, some are those I've admired from afar. I hope you enjoy these conversations, this exploration of the humanity that connects all of us, as much as I do having them. Thank you for being here and for listening. There's no one quite like Kenny MacIntyre. The former culture director for Red Bull Canada and founder of Red Bull Thre3Style, the world's largest DJ competition, he is a mine of creative ideas and always in perpetual motion. Kenny grew out east in Sudbury, Ontario, with his mom, dad, and brother. His love for music and sound came at a young age, listening to records with his dad and discovering new music during his teenage years, something he continues to do now. Having watched his father battle mental illness, he's as compassionate and empathetic as he is brilliant. In this conversation, we deep dive into music that influenced him, how Red Bull Thre3Style was an experiment that turned into something much, much bigger, his pivot toward more self-care and alternative healing this past year, a coming soon project called Play the 19th, and much more. Please enjoy this conversation with the unstoppable Kenny MacIntyre. Kenny Mac, welcome to The Craft.
Nice to be here, May.
I'm really glad you're here.
It's twice in 24 hours after a long gap
Yes.
since I last seen you.
Yes. I can't wait to talk about yesterday evening. We'll save that little nugget for later. But I was thinking about how we met, and it was many moons ago with our web of mutual friends. And you were still the culture director at Red Bull Canada.
Okay.
The good old days. And I think that was more than a decade ago.
That would make sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not very particular with inventorying my timeline. I have general memories and
or not memories
or
from
not.
those days.
Yeah. I remember the essence of the times. Not necessarily all of the times.
Oh, I want to take that phrase, the essence of the times.
It's yours. It's free license. Open source.
Trademark it.
Yeah.
But yeah, now here we are shooting the breeze, and I always love doing that with you. So
yes, it's always fun shooting the breeze with yourself, and now we're doing it with microphones.
Yes,
usually
yes. It's just over
somewhere
coffee
on a
or
bar
somewhere.
stool or a double A's wedding.
shop.
I think it was.
That was fun. Over waffles.
Yeah, waffles.
Yes.
Lovely times.
Good times. So tell me about growing up. What was your family dynamic like? What were you like as a kid?
Going way back.
We're going way back, Kenny.
I was having trouble 10 years ago as a working guy. Now we're going to Sudbury. All right. So I grew up in Northern Ontario, Sudbury. I think it's a great place to be from. My brother still lives there. Grew up playing all the sports. I think, we took piano lessons, which we didn't really like because back then, I think music teaching was very specific in that our piano teacher taught us classical piano, which I had zero interest in as a 9 to 15-year-old kid or whatever it was. I was into discovering music on my own. Anyway, so I grew up in Sudbury, Ontario. Mom, dad, brother, couple dogs through the time.
Yeah.
But like a lot of families, my parents split up and single mom raised us. She's the superhero of a woman. I can't believe we got to where we got to from where we were. And she moved out here 14 years ago when Micah got pregnant with Otis. We Sudbury was a great place, but when we told her she was pregnant, she called us back the next day and said, "I'm moving to Vancouver."
Nice to have the support, though.
It was insane.
Yeah.
I was like, crazy. You've lived in Sudbury for so long.
Yeah. What is she like?
My mom?
Yeah.
She's the best. She's fighting super hard right now. She had a spinal incident, I guess, in late fall and ended up spending about 90 days in the hospital during COVID.
Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry.
2 surgeries, and now she's learning how to walk again.
Wow.
She's 77 right now and basically learning how to walk again. We don't get to see her very much because well, she's due for her vaccine soon,
Yeah.
but obviously with 2 kids and a normally active lifestyle around our house with a lot of interaction with people, even though that's been very limited, it's too much to see older people who are vulnerable right now, as I'm sure everyone who you've talked to and everyone who will ever hear this can know right now and really relate to. But yeah, I wish I could be as nice as my mom.
Mm.
she's a sweetheart.
Yeah.
And
Very
she really
generous.
wants to know what's up with everyone's life.
Mm.
Right, Mom? She asks questions, and before you finish answering, she asks another question because she's very
Just
inquisitive.
curious. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And what about Dad?
Yeah. So my dad, we had a very tight relationship as kids. We suffered through he suffered through mental disease. And back then it was I must have been 13 when we really found out about it. And it was a different time. You didn't talk about mental health and mental wealth like we do now. Like we almost talk about it all the time, overtly everywhere. Back then, especially in Northern Ontario, it was kind of suck it up. Buttercup was the attitude for everything, right? So admitting you had a disease was tough enough. And then when you did say you had a disease, it was basically like walking around with polio in the 20s or whenever that happened, right? People looked at you differently. So it was a bit of a struggle. So I grew apart from him. There was a lot to do with the actual reality of mental disease as well that pushed us apart. But he passed away probably 20 years ago now, but wasn't very good to his body. And between that side and, smoking 2 packs a day and those kind of things, his heart didn't work. So,
Right.
yeah.
Right. That must have been so difficult to
definitely
watch.
Yeah, it was super difficult. My aunt and uncle, wow, they did so much for him and us growing up to make it easier on us and help him and help the whole family, and, deal with what he was going through. But there's certain things he imparted on me that I'll never forget. Like,
Like what?
an assist is worth more than a goal.
Mm.
And I say that in sports to kids all the time.
Mm.
I'm emotional. Real talk.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So growing up was fun.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm done. I'm 47, and I don't think anyone's done growing up yet. But
It's life is a work in progress all the time.
mhm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And what about you? What were you like as a kid?
Should I call my mom? My perspective or hers? She always made fun of me because I would play with a group of friends, get home and call another group of friends and play with them, and they'd get tired, and I'd call another group of friends and go play with them. And it's a couple of years after that, and I'm kind of still the same in that I'm always wanting to do new stuff and new things, and not necessarily with new people all the time, but different people a lot. That's for sure. I've had a life where I've got to meet a lot of new people and make new friends all over the world in short amount of times in a lot of instances, but people you gravitate towards.
Yeah, for sure.
In both ways. It's like some sort of weird magnetic connection where I met this guy just off the top of my mind, Ernesto, in Lebanon, and from the second we high-fived, we've been friends since, and I've only spent probably 5 days of my life with this guy, but I consider him a good friend,
Yes.
And there's lots of people like that. But
totally.
I
Sometimes
don't know why I thought of Ernesto right now, but shout out Ernesto. Shall
Yeah, sometimes connections are totally undeniable, and the length of time where you meet a person doesn't necessarily dictate, the depth of that relationship. You can meet someone for 5 days and feel like you've known them forever.
Yep, 100%. We've got a lot of that from travels.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. You were always in perpetual motion prior to this last year.
Yes.
We'll get to
We're
that.
gonna get into some
We're
weird
gonna get
stuff.
into
All
that
right.
for
Cool.
sure. I wanted to go back. You were talking about having to take piano, and classical music wasn't your thing, but discovering music was. So what did that look like for you when you were a youngster? Like, how were you discovering music? Because, I know you now, and you're super into music and
Yeah.
playing it.
My dad always played records around the house. We didn't have a lot of them. I don't think a lot of people did. It was very interesting, right? Like the creative constraint of the physicality of music at the time as well. People only had so many records, and you didn't have the internet. You couldn't stream, so you had to listen to what you had. And that's kind of that album culture of listening to things. But the Eagles live, I remember listening to that record quite a lot with my dad, and that was a very powerful record. And hearing harmonies and strange spaces in the records, and that was a crazy record to listen to as a kid. And then I remember buying U2 War, I think that was 1984, on cassette, Sam the Record Man, and there was some really interesting drum programming on that. I think Daniel Langlois might have produced that record or the one after, but again, some really interesting soundscape on that record. What's the other one? It was a compilation record called Solid Gold back then. They had some compilations were a thing. That was a way to discover at my timeline in Sudbury, Ontario, because you got to hear 12 artists on one piece of recording. Then the radio, we would record songs on the radio to tape to be able to hear them.
Yeah.
Yeah, Discovery then was different because the creative constraint was so much tighter, both financially and just access-wise. You didn't have access to literally every song on earth in your pocket at all times. So we had a limited perspective of music, but luckily hung out with friends that were always, oh, you got to hear this record. Oh, you got to hear this record. You got to hear this record. Yes. Whatever that was.
Those friends are the best. Yeah, where you can discover music. In university, a group of friends of mine, we had this email thread, and they were super into music, obscure stuff. And so it was, every week there was like, have you seen this? Have you heard this? And I was like, no, I haven't, but thank you for sharing. So yeah, I get it. It's pretty cool.
I guess when we turned 17, 18, we started going to this venue in Sudbury called the Townhouse Tavern. And this was early 90s, like 90, 91, something like that. And Canadian music like, the Rio Statics and Sloan and all these, this crazy Canadian sort of post-grunge scene of bands. We'd go see them 7 nights a week, and it was just whoever was touring, we'd go see them and judge them on their live performance and whether or not it was dope. And there's a band, the Bourbon Tabernacle Choir from Toronto, and they were amazing live. I think they were like 7 or 8 piece band.
Great name.
And Kate was a crazy singer. Chris was a crazy singer. Still listen to their records. I randomly Google searched them one day, and the drummer got back to me and sent me a zip of all the old songs, and it was crazy to relive all that. But just a wild band, but 8-piece band in a venue that was, I don't know, 8 times the size of this podcast studio in Sudbury. We're drinking Northern Draft. And you really had to perform live and to sell your show, because they weren't on the radio back then. The radio still formatted the way it was. So the Discovery was live for sure.
I love those small intimate venues. I miss them, like Richards on Richards.
Saw a lot of things at Richards. Yeah.
Oh, I bet you did. I did too.
Discovered some things at Richards for sure.
And you can't erase it from your mind now.
No. Good Jose memories. Gonzalez was at Richards. That was a great show.
That would have been great.
That was cool. I saw Maceo Parker there.
I think you were there too, but mutual friends of ours, I think it was Maddie Donald, AA. We went and saw M83 at Richards, and that was incredible because that sounded so...
there. That was great.
Yeah.
Saw Sparta there. They were great. So many good rushing back.
Yeah.
That wasn't even that small. Like the Townhouse was the size of the Richards stage with maybe the dance floor.
Really?
It was small.
That's teeny tiny.
Yeah.
I want to go back to, or maybe fast forwarding now to your career in action sports. You were at Spy Optic for a while.
Yeah.
Before you found yourself at Red Bull. So what was that like?
That was pretty fun. I worked retail in Whistler back when I moved to Whistler, and for a few months, and lived there for however many years it was. I was working retail, and how did this work? sold a lot of skis and snowboards at our shop and get to know the reps, so on and whatnot. And one of them was the Rosno rep, and I sold a lot of Rosno snowboards and skis and kind of did some tech work for Rosno, and went on the road with who's one of my best friends still to this day, Nelson Phillips. Went on the road with him and Patty Kay and Tim O'Brien and a bunch of just Whistler legends back then, and toured the interior of BC, got to know these guys quite well. And I was kind of the snowboard guy. They were all skiers. And then Nelson ended up getting the contract for Spy to come to Canada through a new distributor and tapped me to be the rep, working with him, repping kind of BC. So that was kind of my indoctrination into that side of the action sports world. And I was technically the sales rep for a couple of years, but I was always more of a marketing kind of brand community manager anyway.
Yeah.
So as the company grew and the sales grew and grew dynamically out here, I moved more into a marketing role on that side and a brand side. And really, we didn't have social media back then, but it was community management. Like, yeah, we had a team, but we had a massive team as well of, God, I'm going to air quote here, influencers.
Right. Yeah.
Just real people that did real things that we wanted to be part of the brand and tell the brand story. And that was my world of getting into action sports, I guess. And from there, we did a few other brands here and there, but we threw a lot of events with retailers.
Yeah. Oh, I bet.
And really, you know, that especially in the 90s and the early 2000s, the action sports retail world was the retailer. Without them, none of the brands would go around. So we tried to take care of those retailers the best we could. And the best way we knew how was to show them a good time.
Yeah, no kidding. Oh, yes. I remember some of those shakers. Yeah. Do you think that the early 2000s were sort of the glory days of you know, that industry of action sports?
Oh, man. I think I know what you're trying to say, but I don't want to say it was the glory days, because what kids are doing today is so much crazier than what kids were doing then on the snowboards and the skis. And I don't like saying my generation was cooler than that generation. There was a very special time, especially in Vancouver. I wasn't a big mountain biker, but freeride mountain biking kind of started here in BC, right? Like what Derek Westerland and those guys did with freeride films, and all the guys on the shore, Brett Tippy, and these guys were doing stuff on bikes. And that wasn't even my scene. And it was crazy the impact it had globally, but skiing and snowboarding was massive here as well. And that was more where I was aligned. And the Wildcats guys were doing just crazy stuff back then. And before them, the whiskey videos, those were nuts. But seeing what Sean Pettit just put out with K2, Mindbender, that was a few weeks ago. And that's still, he's progressing the sport and the art behind the sport so far. So yes, for me, it was the glory days, but I don't like saying it's the best. It's kind of like saying golden era hip hop's the best hip hop. Well, for some people, I guess. Right. Can you be the best at hip hop? I don't know. I wouldn't want to rap against Nas if I had to battle him, but I would much prefer battling against any little rapper than against Nas. Put it that way.
I would love to see that.
I'd promote it. I wouldn't do it.
And then you moved over to Red Bull after that.
Yeah. So I'd done a couple projects with Red Bull USA. Shout out Jameson Keegan. I met him before Red Bull came to Canada, and then Red Bull came to Canada and my phone rang. And I knew quite a lot about the brand from being in the action sports world and, you know, playing around in the music space a little bit through the action sports world, and seeing what they'd done was very admirable. And I don't usually use that word with brands, not very often at all. But how they approached was very interesting, where they wanted to own concepts on rather than just sponsor things and try to be tertiary involved. When their strategy was to do things right from the ground up, and I really believe in that. So it was fun working there for a long time.
Yeah, you were there for a while. And then you had this idea for Red Bull Thre3Style, which started as something experimental and then
Oh man.
turned into the world's biggest DJ contest
Yeah, it's funny when you
competition.
really like go back in time and try to look at that. My friend Scotty Jewett, actually, that I worked with at Red Bull, he did one in the Okanagan, and it was kind of like a version of Three Style. It was actually his naming convention, but it didn't really have the format that it needed to work. It was kind of just too judged by the audience. And so I kind of tweaked the format a little bit, and he went on to do some other crazy stuff at Red Bull, but I was kind of more on the music side then specifically. And the concept was there loosely, but with a few tweaks. I judged the DMCs a couple times up in Whistler working with Spy, and I loved the DMCs. I love what the DJs were doing. I just found it very inaccessible to the normal music fan. And so I kind of went to G-Man and Rob Risk, and they ran this thing called Mash It Up Fridays at Atlantis. What are we on? Are we on Homer or are we on Richards? We're on Homer
We're
right
on
now.
Homer.
We're close. I got a proximity vibe to old Richards on Richards days. But I went to them and said, hey, we got this idea. I want to try it out with you guys. Let's get the best DJs in the city, give them each 15 minutes. They got to play 3 genres, but they can kind of flex like they would in the studio or with with their friends doing cut up sessions or all the things you do with DJs that are meant kind of for DJs, but do it to a dance floor audience and really keep that in mind from the forefront. Like, cool, you can do the craziest crab scratch of all time. That's awesome. Does the dance floor care? And that has to be top of mind. Whatever you're going to do, that the dance floor has to care about it and feel it as much as see it and understand it, and it adds to the music. It doesn't turn into a guitar solo contest,
Mm-hmm.
if you were to compare it to live music. Because can you watch a guitar solo for 15 minutes? Maybe. Can you watch 6 of them happen back to back at a nightclub on a Friday? Probably not.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea was to keep it moving, and in the 3 genre thing made it back then too. Everything was very well, we can dial it back a little further. Outside of a very few DJs, open format wasn't really a thing back then. People were hip hop DJs or house DJs or techno DJs or drum and bass DJs. But shout out Scotty Arkwell and DJ Check, who ran some nights at Whistler, and they were as open format as I've ever seen. And it kind of changed my whole perspective. And I definitely molded Thre3Style off of what those two were doing in the clubs in Whistler when I first moved there in the mid 90s. Because Scotty would play jazz records and drum and bass records and rap records and somehow weave them all together. And Czech was playing remixes he did of Kenny Rogers in the club on he ran a Sunday night for, I think it was 20 years Soul Kitchen ended up going for.
Wow.
At Tommy's on Sundays. But he would play everything. And it was crazy. So yeah, that was kind of the idea behind it, was to take some of their approach with this open format ideas and playing any genre, breaking down those walls, then adding in the technical elements that are the separator of, again, I'm using air quotes here, but your festival DJ who just rinses records, and that's a good time. It's fun, but there's not much happening. And if you can count to 4, you can do it technically. But these halftime things that some of these DJs are doing and all the drum syncopation stuff that they could do with scratches was just fascinating to add that to the mix. So that's kind of how it started. And at the end of the night, Matt the Alien, shout out Matt, who's been through a really tough time recently, but Matt won the first one ever. And I still remember going to Rob and G at the end of the night and going, that was really fun.
Yeah.
We could do that anywhere. I said that
in the
to them.
world.
Yeah, I said, like, we could literally do that anywhere. If you got any kind of DJ culture, this would work. We kind of laughed. Next year we did 6 in Canada, then we did 10 in Canada with the national final, and then we did a world final in Paris in 2010, and we brought in, I think, 10 countries on one night. That first one, yeah, it was down at the Élysée de Montmartre in France. Right in Paris. It was wild to actually be in there thinking about the Roots and Jill Scott singing about that venue.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're in there doing a show 2010 and took over a hotel. And yeah, we did 9 world finals and we are supposed to do a 10th in Moscow, but
Yeah, Russia.
now we're here.
And then the world stopped.
The world stopped.
Yeah.
Really
Yeah.
did.
So, what was that like for you as someone who, as we said, is someone in perpetual motion? You were always traveling, to essentially be, forced to be grounded.
What was it like or what is it like?
Yes,
Yeah,
is.
yeah. What was it like was pretty crazy. I remember going to Alvy and Bill's office. We were doing a national final at Fortune last January on, I think, the 26th or 28th of January, 2020. And that day, we had made the call to cancel our world final in April in Moscow. This is January 2020. Coachella hadn't canceled yet. Nobody had canceled yet.
Mhm.
But because I'd been traveling the world and showed out one kid that worked for us, Loic, he said it in December, right before we went on holiday, saying, "Hey, I think we got to pay attention to COVID." We all kind of went, what are you talking about? This is December 19. And by the time we came back, I was like, oh, this thing is bigger than I could have ever imagined. And we hadn't even felt it in North America yet. And we canceled and everyone, oh, what are you talking about? You're canceling. And then all of a sudden Coachella canceled. All this was happening. And I didn't believe it would still be like this now. It's almost April 2021. And we're still kind of in a very similar situation that we were in then.
Mm-hmm.
I've been on the road 100,000 miles of flying a year for well over a decade. Ironically, I caught up with Jazzy Jeff on Wednesday last week. We hadn't talked on the phone in a while. We were just catching up and he's like, oh, how are you? How are the kids? And his twins are basically my kid's age. And it's like, how's this for you? I'm like, it's really weird, man. I haven't been home this long. And wait a second. How long have you been home, dude? And he goes, Kenny, I'll tell you what, Lynette and I were talking about this the other night at dinner and we figured it out. 37 years he hasn't been home for a year.
Wow.
So everything's all perspective. And I thought I had it crazy, but he's been home. He's been on the run 37 years. I've done it for 15 or so, I guess. So it's been a big adjustment for sure.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of challenges, a lot of clutter in our house because I'm usually gone a lot more than I was there.
Yeah.
So we're all on top of each other more than we've ever noticed before.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What did it bring up for you, kind of just internally, and thoughts and feelings and emotions about all of this change, and who you were for 15 years on the run, and now you're stopped?
Yeah. Wow, this is a loaded question. I miss certain parts of travel for sure. New cultures, new ideas, new perspectives are keep me moving mentally, but also it gave me time to look at things through a different lens for sure. I didn't do enough activity on the road. I was active, but just out doing things a lot, out late nights a lot. I do more push-ups now. I drink a lot of water, a lot of juice now, more probably in the last year than I have in the last 15 years combined. Still drink a ton of coffee.
Mm-hmm.
I bought beer at the start of the pandemic in March, and I think I've been back to the beer store once.
Wow.
Since. So I drink beer with friends on bar stools. I don't drink at home normally.
Mm-hmm.
I did go through a stage where I opened a different bottle of scotch every day for 50 days, I think in April last year, because I was so bored. I have a great bar at home, but I never drink from it because I'm usually on the road. Yeah. And I save that for when people like you come over for dinner and we can share things. But no one's been able to do that. So I just started opening bottles and trying them. Mm-hmm. That was fun. So yeah, I'm a lot more, I'm writing a lot too. Where I used to write a lot more for purpose, like for projects directly right then, but now it's more for ideas and trying to turn those into projects. So that's been very fun. Yeah, a lot of discovery. music thing too. Oh my God, I discovered more music this year than ever. And that's been really cool. But I was talking to my friend Matt Hexamer, who's doing some stuff with Spotify, sent me this interview questions about different ways to discover music. And I was writing it and I was like, it's so strange because every song, no matter what, Bourbon Tabernacle Choir at the Townhouse, I think about who I was with and what we did and those moments. I don't know, or my friend Ernesto I talked about before, he plays like Ethiopian fuzz rock 45s at a night in Beirut called the Beirut Groove Collective. He plays all kinds of crazy music, but like he literally has the only copy on earth of these records and he plays them and people freak out in Beirut. Awesome. But there's all these discovery moments where you remember the moment. I discovered more records in 2020, 2021 than ever for sure, but the moment's the exact same. Me laying on the floor with headphones on. And it's so weird because there's no context to the discovery except for the songs themselves and laying my ass on the floor with my headphones on.
Anything that you discovered that you're just like, wow, that was mind blowing?
So many.
Mm-hmm.
So many. And I started to organize things into playlists, I guess. I was just away last weekend for the first time since the pandemic hit, really, to Retallick on a snowboard trip. And they have a really cool hot tub out back with lasers. And I put together a playlist over the year that I hadn't been there that would be perfect for listening to in the hot tub
with lasers.
With the lasers. And actually, one night was in the hot tub. The next night was in the sauna by myself. Well, with two other friends that ended up in the sauna. And now the title of the playlist is the Eucalyptus Laser Mind Therapy playlist. So, yeah.
Oh, my gosh. I like it.
So I listen to a lot of
like
music,
Mm-hmm,
different kinds, just to take you places, and done a lot more of that through the pandemic, discovering new tunes and then listening to music around the house. Tucker and I were up this morning, and what were we listening to? We were listening to Bonobo, and he was like, yeah, this is really neat.
Bonobo.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's cool for your 12-year-old to
Gonna
say
say, wow.
that's neat.
Mm-hmm,
So yeah, we were listening to that this morning at breakfast, and we listen to all kinds of stuff. There's no real genre agnostic.
Yeah. That's really cool.
What else have I don't know. Kind of went on there, but
No, I love it. I was just thinking about, this last year and, just recognizing that you've been doing a lot more self-care, I think, in this last year. You've been juicing, you've been doing acupuncture.
oh yeah,
You came in for a sound therapy session / healing with me
yeah.
yesterday.
I did online psychologist, I guess, not psychotherapy, just psychologist. That was weird.
Yeah.
Talking to someone that you don't know on Zoom, but
How'd it go?
there were some tidbits that I picked up for sure. It's not really my way of healing. I didn't feel like I was like, a big weight off my shoulder.
Yeah.
I picked up some interesting tidbits. One time talking about the kids, he was like, you have to, the saying, you have to lead a horse to water. Well, that's part of it, but you have to make the horse thirsty. And it was an interesting perspective that I picked up from that because sure, if they're not thirsty, the water is not worth much. So
well, yeah, that's a good tidbit.
A lot of really self-exploration for sure.
What does that look like for you? Or what has that looked like for you? What have you discovered?
What have I discovered? I discovered that I really like music for sure. I discovered I really like telling stories of not necessarily myself, but stories in general, and finding unique perspectives that haven't been told and figuring out ways to tell those stories. So I've been working on some projects there. Trying to be a better dad and partner just in general, which I don't necessarily try, but I hold myself to a high standard on that side anyway. I like to coach and I like to be around. And that's something I've always done, I think, naturally, which is weird to say. But I'm writing a lot and trying to do new things.
Yes.
Yeah.
How was the sound healing for you yesterday?
Yeah.
Sound therapy.
So sound therapy was really neat. May does very interesting. I'm into all these weird places that your mind can go. And I got there through crystal bowls, a shaker made out of, I'm not sure what, but goddamn, it was loud.
Yeah, it was very
Shaker
loud.
was arresting when you
Mhm.
first started it. But I think I live somewhere. My most creative time is, what would you call it, theta?
Theta.
I try to get to that theta state, and acupuncture really helps with that.
Mhm.
I think I was in that theta state yesterday for a while. I think I was bouncing into delta because I was so fatigued from snowboarding
Mhm.
at Retallick on 45-degree pistes and tons of snow and not riding
Yeah.
enough this year. So
Yeah.
my body was fatigued.
Yeah, and actually, just to backtrack so that people understand what theta and delta is, theta is the brain wave state between sleeping and awake, or your conscious or your subconscious, and it's really where intuition bubbles up and also deep healing, and delta is full sleep, REM. So yeah,
So
just a
an
little
acupuncture,
context.
yeah, that's good because you explained that maybe better than I could. Delta for me, when I go to acupuncture, when I lay face down, I always lay face down the first time. I don't know why, but my friend Tanya does it, and then I'm on my front and I pass out like hardcore. But you can't move. That's the thing about acupuncture. You're basically debilitated because you got all these needles and all these pinch points or whatever you want to call them.
Mm-hmm.
But when I lay on my back, that's when I get into the theta. I can't fall asleep in there on my back,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm just in between and everything crystallizes in that state for me.
I was going to ask, is that where all your ideas kind of surface up
I think the
and come
ideas are
together?
happening all the time, but they come together then. That's what I find. Last time I was in there, she had a bunch of needles in my front when I was laying on my back. And I had the words finally for this thing that I've been trying to crystallize. And I'm laying on my back, and Tanya's funny. She goes, when I go in, I guess you're scheduled for an hour, but she always asks, how long can I have you? And I always book with her open-ended.
Mm-hmm.
So I was in there for like 2.5 hours total, and like an hour and a half probably on my back with this one thought that I needed to write down so badly, but I couldn't because I couldn't move.
Mm-hmm.
And when she came in, I was like, yo, she's like, hey, how you doing? I'm like, get these out of me right now. I need my telephone and I need to write this down before I forget it. And she's laughing. She's like, okay, cool. She pulls all these needles out of me and runs out. I was like, okay, thank you. Come out like 15 minutes later with this diatribe that I've been
Well, it's good
bringing
that you
together.
know where you do come up with those crystallizations.
Yeah, I definitely had a couple. You asked me where I went yesterday
Mm-hmm.
when I came out of I was transcendental at points for sure. I don't really know where I went yesterday, but I felt a lot better when I came out of it.
Mm-hmm.
So I've
Yeah.
been trying to think about that when you said, how is the sound healing? And for me,
Yeah.
it was very impactful.
Mm-hmm.
It was very positive, very vibrant.
Mm-hmm.
Um, my friend Alvaro, who I was working with today, he's like, wow, you're in a good mood. And we talk a lot of shit to each other, but I attributed it directly to our healing session. So I was you even said I look nicer today than I did yesterday. I must have looked haggard yesterday because I looked pretty haggard today.
You definitely were tired probably from Retallick.
Yeah.
But I do think it is the orchestration of all of the different things that we did yesterday. You know, we were talking about the shaker, and the shaker is a more of a shamanic tool and instrument, and it's good for releasing negative energy and physical tension. So it's good to start that off because it's quite abrasive. And then we went into the breathing with the qigong breathing for all the different organs. And
I was trying to count your fours with your bowl sounds
yeah,
and with my eyes closed. So it's only just on audio registry, but I was trying to do 4 in, 4 hold, 4 out,
yes,
4
yes.
hold to your pacing of your loops you were making on the bowl. And I was trying to do it, but I think that helped me get to that state. I don't think I did it very well.
Yeah, you mentioned that yesterday. Yeah, and you know what? I did look up. You said that
Oh,
you
yeah.
had
Tell me
the
more.
pinching.
Sorry, let me
Yes.
just preface this.
Mm-hmm.
May played a note through one of the bowls, and when it started, my arch of my right foot it was like it was plugged into the wall. It got so tight
Yeah.
from that noise.
Yeah.
But tell me more. What happened to me?
Yes. So I ended up looking at reflexology, and the arch of your foot is your stomach and your pancreas spleen area. And do you remember how we did the voicing for the stomach
Oh yeah,
around worry?
yeah.
So I'm curious to know if those two are related. Like if there was you
It was
needed a
who,
release.
who,
Who? Yeah.
who.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So,
What did we do?
anyways,
We
that's
did
the area.
she, who,
Yes.
an om at the end.
We did an omen in the end too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't done
So
very much chanting. I'm more of using my ears to make noise,
yeah.
to consume noise than my mouth. But
Yeah. So there you go. So that's what I found yesterday. So maybe there's a correlation between that.
was that twitchy?
Were you twitchy?
Yeah.
No, you were quite still.
Okay.
Yeah, your hands weren't twitching, your feet weren't twitching. But you were definitely going between theta and delta.
Fatigue was a factor.
Yeah, I think so. Fatigue was definitely a factor there. But I'm really happy that you feel better and lighter.
For sure.
Yeah. And you're super into matcha as well, you were saying.
Oh man. So I guess I'm super into caffeine. I've always drank coffee since, I don't know, when I was 18 or something, but I drink too much of it probably. And my friend Kenta, who's a business partner on a new venture, we go for walks, and I picked him up one morning with the dog. Yeah, we didn't touch on the dog. We got a dog during COVID too.
Yeah.
So we go for walks, and I was going to buy coffee, and he goes, "Oh, I don't drink coffee. I'd only drink matcha." So I tried a matcha with him one afternoon, and now it's coffee in the morning and matcha in the afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of my vibe.
Does he make it in the traditional way with the whisk and like the really potent
Yes,
matcha?
but Mans also makes pottery now.
Oh,
He's
yes,
like
I
all
do.
about
He's all about
he's all about the ways.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
So
Wow.
we usually meet somewhere and buy a matcha, but and walk the dog. But I really enjoy the matcha vibes, and I've been drinking lots of juice.
Yes.
My friend Tanya, who my acupuncturist and healer on that side, traditional Chinese medicine, I was asking her about what juicer should I buy, and she goes, "None. You have Vitamix. I know you have a Vitamix. Make it in there and drink the pulp because you get more fiber.
Okay.
Don't get so high and mighty about the pureness of the juice. Take the whole thing that you're putting in, some water, and if you want to put, I'm into MCT oil as well. I put that in the juice sometimes, and blend it, but also drink all the pulp because that's where all the fiber is. And her
Makes
thing
sense.
is the MCT oil is a fat that helps burn fats, but we in general don't get enough raw fiber in our diets. So that's an interesting one too.
Right. That's a good tip. I guess it pushes everything out too. That needs to
Well, yeah, I
to
pee a
leave the
lot
body. Yeah.
when I drink all this water and green tea and juice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you were saying that you and Kenta have a project. Is there anything that you can tell us about the
Yeah,
things that
that
you're
one we're
working
getting
on?
closer. So there's 5 of us on that one actually. Played a lot of golf during the first part of the pandemic, which was nice because I was actually home and I have a membership here and never get to play enough, but I love the game. I think golf is very fun because I can be competitive at it, but I can't get hurt. Where if I go play basketball now, my knees hurt and I get undercut and still try to dunk it. And I tore my hamstring last year. Well, what are you trying to dunk the ball for? You're 47 years old and you're still trying to dunk the ball, but I just can't stop. But golf, you can be super competitive. And really, if you're in any kind of shape, you're not going to get hurt. And you can play with your friends. You can play with any generation. You can play, 2 generations above or 3 generations below and still have a lot of fun, travel the world. It's everywhere. So during the pandemic, I started thinking about maybe trying to get a job, like a job and apply for a job, which I haven't done in I don't know how long. And I looked at the golf industry and I thought, oh man, I like golf, but I don't like this industry that much. There's nothing I really am interested in. So then automatically I see an opportunity and I know I can't do it all myself, but my old production partner on Thre3Style, Matt, he They do a lot of very cool digital content they started with, but they started a fly fishing show years ago and started a brand called Houquet. And they do a fly fishing brand direct to consumer. And they have a pick and pack warehouse for that. They have another brand called Growers, which is a gardening brand. But they make their stuff in some really cool factories around the world and have an awesome process involved. And they have a pick and pack. And Matt, I turned him into a golfer through our travels together, going around the world with Thre3Style. He's gotten into golf. So right away I was like, yo, I think we should start a golf brand. You guys got like the factory side, some of the brand side dialed, a lot of the storytelling part. Talked to him. He's like, cool. And then, do you know Jeff Williams?
Yes. Yeah.
So Jeff, I reached out to Jeff right away, and Jeff's family's been in golf for a long time. And he worked in the golf industry through OGO and then started his project company and 2 Under underwear in the golf space. And he sold all his shares. And now he's into more, he makes all kinds of things for brands, but loves golf and great golfer. So I reached out to him and said, hey, what do you think of this idea in golf? He's like, oh shit, that's pretty cool. But I want to introduce you to another friend. And his friend that he golfs with quite a lot is a great lawyer named Arif Noorani. So he's doing all the administrative heavy lifting that I hate.
Legal stuff. Mm-hmm.
So through all this, those are 3 golfers, myself. And we all kind of know a little bit about design, but aren't the right person for it. And I reached out to Kenta, who I met in probably 1995 when I moved to Whistler. We've always stayed in touch, and I've always admired his work because his work is some of the best in design in the world. So I reached out to him and I said, do you play golf? No. Perfect. Let's go for coffee, which turned into matcha. But he doesn't golf. And our whole position in golf for this brand is be golf wear, be golf experiences, be golf technologies for the professional who plays golf, not necessarily the professional golfer. We don't want to look like the PGA Tour. We don't want to look like golfers. We want to look like normal dudes who are out playing golf. And I could wear it here and you wouldn't know that it was golf wear necessarily, but I could wear it on the golf course and just get by with it. So it's been a fun project. We've been, we're hopefully launching middle of summer with a small collection this year. There's some technology side of that company that we're working on where we're trying to develop a process for recycling range balls. So that's been working on some grant writing for that one. And all of us have full-time work. So this is kind of a passion project on the side that's been really fun. Yeah. And we'll see where it goes. Yeah. It's called Play the 19th.
Play the 19th.
So
more to come in the summer.
More to come in the summer. The idea behind it is writing a rule book, like 19 rules to your life that have golfisms and lifeisms they can populate either side. But one of them is to basically always play the 19th hole. And the 19th hole is where you go and have a drink with the people you played with and have a cheers, because that's bigger than golf. It's not like go and get smashed. It's go and have a cheers with the people you just played with, because you might not ever see them again.
I like that a lot.
And we don't make that time enough in our lives. So that's kind of our last rule.
Yeah.
In the book. But we're working on a little book for it too about our 19 rules, and the numerology is very interesting and convenient. And I like numerology. Thre3Style was very literal, right?
Yes,
3 styles of music in 15 minutes. But so there's a lot of cool things with 19 that we're playing with, and you'll see more of that fleshed out in the brand as we move it forward.
I love that. I love that what you just said. And I agree. I don't think we always make enough time.
We always have enough time. I try not to say the word have enough time anymore. I always try to say make enough time, because we have a choice to make said time. Yeah. It can be a grind. It can be a pain in the ass. But unless you say you don't have the time, you most likely had it.
Yes.
And make it.
Well, it's the same thing with priorities, right? It's just like you just didn't make it a priority because you didn't want to.
Yes. I know. I have a few of those. Ask Micah.
I know that you well, congratulations, and I can't wait to.
Well, there's nothing to congratulate yet. It's just an idea.
But
it's coming.
It's coming. Yeah. So I'm excited about that when it launches. I know you love being a dad very, very much, and enjoy spending time with your boys, Otis and Tucker. I mean, it's been a minute since I've seen them, and they're much older than the
Yeah,
last
bring
time I
a
saw
step
them.
stool.
Yeah, oh, I'm sure. Are they more and more a chip off the old block?
I hope not. For their sake. It's funny, like Otis kind of has a similar build to me and kind of looks like me, and Tucker conversely looks more like Micah and typically acts a little bit more like Micah, but they're fascinating beings, those two. Oh, it was first year of high school during a pandemic where he goes to school for an hour and 18 minutes a day. Shout out Vancouver School Board for keeping our kids safe, but it's been very trying. Very hard to go to school your first year of high school and not really go and learn online and be self-directed and hold yourself to those standards, because kids, I wasn't even ready to do it in university.
Yeah.
Trying to do it at 13, turning 14. So he's doing well now. He's he's been through some trials and tribulations with that, and trying to be a better dad for that, because it's always changing and it's always different. Yeah, so dadding is different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And speaking of Micah, what do you really appreciate most about her?
Oh man, she's so solid all the time. She's the quiet balance in our lives, because I'm chaotic as can be. So she's very grounded all the time, and without that, I'd probably be a disaster. So she keeps everything on the rails around the the Mac and Noof household, because we never got married, so she didn't share my last name, but she has to deal with two more versions of me, a 13 and a 12-year-old version now. Tucker's birthday last week, so she definitely keeps us grounded very well.
She's an anchor.
Yes.
Well, I just have two more questions for you. The second to last one is, if you look back, at your life and yourself, and you were going to say that this is the thing that I am most proud of about me, what would you say?
Oh, shit. I don't think of those things. Hopefully that I put a smile on your face. I guess if you're looking back and I wasn't here, that would be, you're either laughing, hopefully with, potentially at something I did. But it's funny, I was on Clubhouse a few weeks ago, and they're talking about different social medias, and they're like, Facebook and Instagram leave you feeling very depleted and tired, because it's always competitive, and look how awesome my life is. And even though I'm not on TikTok, the guys that was talking said, well, TikTok and Clubhouse leave you feeling light and inspired. And the lightness really helped. I was like, shit, I should be on TikTok, because all I do is make fun of myself anyway. But,
I think you'd blow up.
But I guess if you really net it out, there's, to your question, if you want to look at your legacy, that hopefully, it made you smile. And if that's, we shared a song, we shared a meal, we shared a drink, we stayed up all night and talked shit. But we look back at it and go, maybe I didn't get it at the time because it was too deep, or maybe it was too light at the time. But you look back at it, and that was fun. So I guess that would be it. I don't really.
I mean, you do.
Oh, shucks.
You really do.
Yeah,
I think there's so many funny moments, that I remember. I mean, I was just sharing some with, Jay, one of my awesome team members here in the room, and I was like, Kenny's so funny. Like, he did this, he did that. So yeah, you definitely do, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, doing lots, and never really been one to say, check out my work, how awesome it is. That's not really my motivation. I like doing things for people and building communities around them. That's kind of how Thre3Style started. I'm working with Nate and Alvaro at Blueprint right now, and working on some really fun community initiatives there, and getting ready for reopening with those guys. So lots of fun stuff coming down the pipe there. And I think everything we're planning is to make people smile. So I'm
Yeah.
into it.
Hmm. I wonder, so that question was really about like what you were proud of. I wonder if your answer would be different to this last question, which is, um, with what you do, what is it that you want to leave behind in the world?
Huh. What I do. What do I want to leave behind in the world? A change for better, I guess. Whatever that is to as many people as it can be. Like the golf thing, one of the things we're doing is raging against the antiquities of the game. Like often there's dudes that talk about, girls are only the cart girls. We're not really a girls brand. We don't have that. We're just making golf gear. And right now it's all guys. We'd like to have girls involved as well. We just don't have it at this point. But in our talks, I don't care if you're a guy or a girl, like golf's fun for everybody. So hopefully we can be part of that change in golf, that it's not so stiff.
Mm-hmm.
And we're raging against white pants. Now, why do people wear white pants on the golf course? You look crazy. White pants are not meant for anything except maybe some fashion runway, but no one needs to wear white pants. Wear shorts, goddammit. White pants are nuts.
No grass stains.
Well, we get worse than that too, but running pretty hot over here, man. I just no time for white pants. But yeah, I don't. Legacy's been very low on my thoughts. I think I live too much in the moment to worry about what my past will be when I'm not here.
Mm.
Hopefully my kids will be well set up and able to take risks that they want to take that are safe enough to try.
Mm-hmm.
So that fine balance of setting them up to be able to take risks and take chances, but not put all their eggs in one basket for anything.
Mm-hmm.
Just have that security blanket for them. I guess that's the only thing I'm really worried about, legacy-wise, is how they turn out. Because I'm responsible for you two, damn it.
They're the next generation.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for your time. I always love our chats, and thank you for being so open and just for who you are. I feel really, really grateful to call you a friend.
You as well, May. Thanks for your session yesterday. Thanks for doing this. There's going to be a lot of really cool perspectives. I'm actually having dinner with G-Man after.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I give him a hug for
and
me.
Nate.
And Nate too.
Oh my goodness. We'll have to get Alvaro on here too.
I know, yes.
He likes to listen to himself talk. We have a really fun relationship, right? We've never really worked together until recently. We've worked together on projects from different entities, but working for him right now on this blueprint stuff has been hilarious because we definitely rub each other. But that guy's full of crazy ideas. You get him on. He's got some crazy ideas, that one. I like I said earlier, trying to build that into a story that can be told for a lot of people to hear. And that's kind of what I'm trying to do, is listen to his ideas and then mold them into different ways to tell those stories across. There's so many different businesses that they have. So pretty fun opportunity with what Blueprint's doing in Western Canada and all of Northwest US in the next couple of years too. So they got a lot of things going on.
Yeah.
So that's fun. And then awesome. Maddie and I got our little agency thing. We're still doing some stuff with clients there. So
okay.
A lot of projects in the go.
You're still perpetually in motion.
And coaching basketball from Zoom because I'm not allowed to go to the school.
How does that happen?
Right?
Is it even?
I was supposed to coach the grade 8 Kitsilano high school team this year, and we did Zoom every Monday because we aren't actually allowed to go to school.
Right.
But baseball coaching starts up.
Wow.
Just sent out the welcome to the team email last night, I guess, when I got home from Retallick. So yeah, Tucker's team I'm coaching. Last year, Little League.
Wow.
And I've got 2 teenagers next year. Whoa.
Well, definitely tell G and Nate I say hello.
Will do.
And I hope to have you on again soon.
Oh, hopefully I'll have more stories. Maybe put a smile on someone's face. I guess that's what I'm trying to do. Thanks, May. That was awesome.
Thanks, Kenny. If you enjoyed that last conversation, be sure to check out more episodes of The Craft on Spotify and guest photo galleries on the website at wearethecraft.com. Thanks again for listening.